Oh, holy
Yeah.
crap, man. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
So I was real curious to hear your take on it. So I'll just
No,
have to wait for that for later.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it actually, but yeah, there was a lot of like, huh. That was a really dumb idea I did at the beginning of the game. Well, let's figure out how not to crash and burn horribly.
That sounds like me playing most games. Oops.
No, I thought it was quite interesting. Yeah, I know there's been some like mixed things. When I put on Twitter, it's like, hey, I like this, and some people are like, ooh, I'm looking forward to it. Others are like, this game sucked.
Well, anytime any game gets some kind of strong negative reaction, I'm usually very drawn to it. So
Well,
this one's on my radar now.
Well, to be fair, one of the people that on Twitter said it sucked was JC Lawrence, and I'm not sure I've ever seen him say much positive about anything
No.
ever.
Claw hated it then, huh?
Yeah, I think I've pinned him down though. See, he doesn't like the games that are like very stable, run good companies games. Like he despises 1846. You know, he likes the super unstable, like rip your guts out stock market games, you know, like 1830 and such.
Yeah, definitely more about as the guys from Dual Gauge had said, it's more about, you know, buckling down and holding on because somebody's going to get kicked off. It's like, you know, it's like you're riding a mechanical bull and the first person to lose their grasp loses. That's what they decided. Dirty as to me, it was.
What's it set on? The mechanical like going bananas.
It's yeah. Well, you just keep playing. You just keep turning it up until somebody finally gets thrown off.
Yeah, that happened to me pretty early because you're supposed to buy these, you know, local railways, which are supposed to be absorbed by progressively bigger companies. And it like took me 2/3 of the game parring a company to where I could actually absorb anything. Because I kept starting them way too low in par value. So I was like, I'll do this. Okay, I can see what I was supposed to be doing for the last hour, but I didn't do that. So I like finally started a large company and like absorbed everything.
Nice. Well, gentlemen, it is now time to kick off 2018's Good Board Ugly season. Usually we get about 50 episodes in a given year, depending. So this will be our first one, and 146 chronologically, because we did get kicked off a little bit late into our first inaugural year, which would have been I think it was 2015, right? Because we've done like basically 3 years of Good Board Ugly. So yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty huge. Most people don't survive that long. They get burned pretty quick.
Well, 146 episodes is actually, especially like weekly, to be going for this long is you know, we definitely have tapped into something that we're all at least okay with keeping going.
Yeah.
A lot of places will make it, you know, they'll make it a few years, but episodes wise they'll be, you know, way less than that. But yeah, we've been consistently releasing here. So take some pride in that. All right. I kind of put on a few reviews, but you know, some of them are just going to be like kind of bullet reviews where I'm just going to not say much. So just, you know, I do have a few of them, but I'll just knock them out like bam, bam, bam. And then I have one that's actually going to be a review. So anyway, let's go ahead and get her kicked off. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Board, and the Ugly, a podcast all about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Board, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm being joined by the full gamut of our 3 current paneled hosts, which would be, first off, the guy clear out there who's, you know, I'll make you go first here, TC, because I'm pretty sure that the other 2 guys and I are kind of in hibernate mode with our weather. So
I'm surprised you're not frozen solid at this point.
Yeah. If we stepped outside, I'm pretty sure, like, minutes-wise, it takes, like, what is it, about 30 minutes in this type of weather, even when you're bundled up, to start experiencing, like, straight up.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You know what I like to do is when I'm shoveling the driveway, I want to pretend like I'm the saddest, like, rebel person on Hoth who just has to shovel the driveways for the
you have to shovel and make sure that big door opens and closes. You're out there like
I pretend I'm that because that somewhat makes it more cool.
Send the Wampa fodder out there to clean the gate. Go, Andy.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I came in. My wife's like, "So how cold is it?" I'm like, "Well, my tauntaun died."
But it kept me warm.
Yep.
You know what the internal temperature of a tauntaun is, don't you? Lukewarm.
Wow, that's bad.
All right, this is TC's introduction. TC's out there.
I think I'll have a better introduction than that.
Portland.
Well, I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest. We're at a toasty 40 degrees. It's nice up here.
It's nice. It's
opposite of you guys. We're experiencing the warmest December on record, or January in record. So, go figure.
Yeah,
kind of like my taste in board games and your guys' taste in board games are usually the complete opposite.
That's me and you, TC. I don't know where it sits with everybody else, but yeah, you and Trent definitely had a good time on was it the last episode that we recorded? Your guys' top games.
That was good fun.
Yeah, and you guys ended up kind of dancing around and then synchronizing there towards the end, like any great finale piece.
The L5R Love Fest, that was that episode.
It was. It certainly was. And that you hear there from Trent. Trent, Trent, how are you doing today?
All right, can't complain.
Staying warm.
Trying to.
Yeah, we have a polar blast here. I don't know if we actually said it yet, but we're dealing with like what has been Google News has been calling the polar blast here, and it's covering the Midwest and record low temperatures, and it's keeping them just straight down that low. I think we had the coldest New Year's Eve ever since they've been taking temperatures, and basically, this is the right hobby to be involved in, and that's why I think that the cradle of RPGs is like the upper Midwest, because goodness gracious, you got to have something to do. There's a reason that the Canadians made crokinole. Not everybody can go outside in the winter, so
and curling.
That also, yeah. And then Andy's here. Andy Dennison, how are you doing?
Pretty good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's been like a month plus for you, dude. It's great having you on. It has been a while. I think since you've been on, there's just been so many different events and things. Like I'm sure that everybody here has seen Star Wars, the new Star Wars, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So the what I thought was an excellent movie, and every now and then you had like the naysayer that wanted to see A New Hope version 3. And they didn't get that, so they got A New Hope version 2 with The Force Awakens, but now they wanted version 3, and that unfortunately was denied to them. So they've all been saying bad things about it. But I certainly loved it myself, and got to see it in my hometown theater. So it was good being back in Fort Madison, where I come from. And anyway, but you guys all positive about that Star Wars thing too, or what did you guys think? Any naysayers here?
I enjoyed it, but I don't generally go to Star Wars like for deep plot points. So as long as they're blasting each other, a couple lightsaber duels, we're good.
That sounds like what TC wants from his board games.
I particularly like some the more interesting plot twists that I didn't see coming, because I was in a big crowded theater with a bunch of Star Wars fans, and the collective gasps and looks of shock and awe were definitely worth the price of admission.
I would love to see that too. Trent, did you have any thoughts on it?
I liked it. I don't think it was quite as positive as the three of you seem to be, but I liked it okay. I liked Rogue One better.
Yeah, I
really enjoyed Rogue One as well. Yeah, that's a really good one. Well,
plus I like the new ones and having female leads and just pretending like knowing that gamer gators are seething inside because of it.
They are doing a great job with their composition of their new dream teams, and I do like I like the fact that it seems like there's a lot better representation, and they're not, but none of them are being used as like token characters. I really loved just some of the explorations of Rebels. that aren't necessarily the ones in the spotlight that you saw in this latest one. I thought that was something that was really great about Rogue One, Trent. And then to see it sort of make its way, the exploration of the rebels that aren't just, the ones that are strong in the Force and the Jedis and the ones that, space wizards and stuff, the ones that are just like, the warriors on the front lines. I thought that was really excellent. And I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything, but I love those elements to it. And pretty much, I thought that it did that to round out what was otherwise a really nice package. My theater back home had like built a X-Wing fighter. Like, and it looked like it was built pretty, this is definitely not something that came from a factory anywhere. This looked like something somebody had built and had in their garage. So I thought that was pretty sweet because we just have like a 2-theater, it's not exactly didn't exactly have the nicest of everything like you might expect in the bigger, newer theaters, but they definitely made up for it in heart. So that was something I think we can share with a lot of individuals maybe listening to the podcast right now. But what you've come for are board games, and we are not going to deny those to you. If you're looking to buy some, you should check them out on GameSurplus.com, the sponsor of The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. And before we get kicked off, I would like to thank our editor Josh for all of his wonderful editing prowess and help, and it's just been really awesome to have him taking care of us as an editor. And I'd like to wish him well. He's stepping down from that role, and he's got to focus on some other things in his life. So I wish him well and hope he's able to achieve all the things that he's leaving us for. Like, dude, you better do well. Go off and have a good life. No, he's still going to be part of our local game group, but Josh is, he did an awesome job, and I just wanted to thank him. And you'll be seeing ushering in a new era where I'm going to be editing it myself. So, any mistakes that you guys make, they're gray hairs forming on my head. That's what it is now. Josh,
wait till you have kids.
Yeah. And quick hello to Dean, to Norm, to Carter, and Jerry joining us in our chat. It's really great to hear from you guys. And yeah, Crokinole and a few other things. Happy 2018. And we're going to be talking all this episode about our predictions for 2018. So I think each of us has kind of prepared a list. I got from you guys, I never said, but I have prepared a list of my own, full of snarky, tongue-in-cheek pot shots and other ridiculous musings. But we'll be talking about our predictions, what we think is going to happen in the coming year in 2018. So sit tight for our topic and buckle down for a review coming at you from Trent. And this review, honestly, Trent, sounds like an experimental title or an expansion to number 9. But it definitely is not the most creative naming I've ever seen in a board game. I'll let you take it from here, sir.
I often review heavier games. I'm going to review something ultra light. So 9 Tiles is a recent game from Oink Games. It comes in a little tiny box that you can carry in your pocket. The type of game that you might take to a restaurant or something and play before a meal. It's a game for 2 to 4 players. The way it works is that each player gets an identical set of 9 tiles. On each side of each of the tiles is a symbol. There are 6 possible symbols. Everybody's set of 9 tiles is the same. So you might have a tile that has an orange circle on one side and a green square on the other side. But there's only 6 possible symbols, and all the tiles are double-sided. So what the way the game works is someone turns over a card in the middle of the table. The game comes with a stack of about 40 cards. And there's a pattern, a 3x3 pattern of symbols on that card. You just lay out your tiles in a pattern that matches that 3x3 array. First person to get it says they're done. Everybody verifies. You claim the card. So the first person to claim 4 cards wins. That's it. So what is the point of the game then? The point of the game is like you're trying to flip through your tiles fast enough and flip them to both sides to figure out how you're going to make this arrangement, because they're going to be like 2 blue squares and 2 red triangles and 1 orange wedge and whatever the shapes are on that pattern. But you can't just lay down your 9 tiles and that's it. You got to flip them over and also be rearranging them. And everything's not consistent. It isn't just like you have them 3x3 and you flip one over and now you've got the pattern. You got to be rearranging them and flipping them. You got to be remembering what's on each side of each tile if you want to play well. there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of different approaches to doing it. My wife and I play the game very differently. She likes to hold all 9 tiles in her hand at the start of the flip of a card and then lay them down as she goes and just lay them down in a pattern that approximates it and then start figuring out from there. I like to have all 9 of mine laid out and then come as close as I can and then start flipping to figure out what I need to fix. My daughter seems to have the titles memorized, and she has this weird system that involves having a few of them on the table at the start, and I don't really even know what she's doing. And it's a speed game, so you're playing very quickly, and the whole game is over in about 5 minutes. For a pocket game that you're going to play at a restaurant or something like that, it's probably the best one I've ever had. It just really, really works well for that. This isn't a deep game. It's not supposed to be a deep game. It's supposed to be something you play while you're sitting at a restaurant with your family waiting for the food to come, and that it nails. It nails that. It's absolutely fantastic. Fits in your pocket, quick to play, really easy to teach, fast paced. Everybody's playing at once, no downtime. You're done in 5 or 10 minutes when your food comes. That's exactly what this is, and it's great at it. So that's all I've got to say about 9 tiles. I'm glad I have it. It has been traveling with me to restaurants and stuff over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something that you got this out and taught it, and I want to say that you had taught the game and finished the game, and it was back inside of the box before I'd even finished setting up the board for the game we were going to play.
Yeah, that's about
right. Yeah, and it seems like it would share a little bit in common with like Set. Is there anything similar to that at all?
Yeah, but it's a lot faster than Set. I mean, you got to be able to recognize the pattern and twist it around in your head, because I mean, you can have the pattern in any orientation you want. Plus, there's also the understanding of knowing, as you get better at it, you get to know what all the pairings are in your tiles. Like, if this is on one side, you know what might be on the other side, so you can start flipping them quickly. You get a good sense of which one's the target. But that comes with time. It isn't true initially. So there is a bit of an experienced player will probably thrash a new player, but that doesn't last real long, and then eventually everybody's kind of equal and everybody kind of has their own way of doing it.
Gotcha. Well, interesting. I definitely want to try this one. I mean, it just seems like so fast, and honestly, I thought this was going to be something to do with number 9, the kind of stacking abstract tile laying game, but this is definitely more of like trying to make that specific. Trying to flip your tiles and arrange them to make that specific, whatever you'd call it, like template, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for that, Trent. And we'll go ahead now and jump into a review coming at us from TC, who I think got to play a game that you'd hyped previously, right? The Fantasy Flight L5R. We're going back to the L5R Love Fest here, only now it's not a living card game.
Yes. So if we've been paying attention to previous episodes, I really wanted Battle for Rokugan for Christmas. Yes, really. And I did. I was like, yay, I got a gift card. So I immediately went out and I spent it to get this game. I have played it twice. Now, Battle for Rokugan is a board game set in the Legends of the Five Rings universe. So you don't need to play the card game to play the board game. It is designed by Tom Jolly and Molly Glover, and the designer really caught my attention because Tom Jolly gave me some really chaotic games in the past, most notably Wiz War, which is probably the most chaotic, freaking out of control game I've ever played. So it's in Draken was another game he did that was a weird dungeon crawl thing that you were just trying to run as fast as you can from this dragon, which is kind of interesting. So I got it, and then me and Kate played it once to learn it, and then we played it. I played it 2-player, I've played it 4-player, and I played it 5. And it comes in this really small box. I mean, the box size is the same size that the card game comes in. And they just pack a ton of stuff in this thing.
That's tiny. Yeah, I'm really actually surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and but one of the problems is the game comes with all these chits for all the factions, and they don't give you enough baggies for all the chits.
Oh, dude, like, it is Fantasy Flight. Come on.
Come on, Fantasy Flight. I mean, jeez. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They give you
a gigantic deck of cards, and they give you no bags whatsoever unless there's some sort of plastic piece that has to come in a bag. That's the only time. Like, it is all they do is do shipping inserts. Like, they leave it up to the player to organize the game. They do not do anything as far as that goes. They just make sure it gets to you undamaged as much as possible.
So what Battle of Rokugan is boiling down to being, it's an area control game. And the way it's done is you have a little screen and you have this pile of 27 combat chits. And each faction has 27 combat chits. And each faction has a unique power that's really simple. And so each factions are the clans. There's like Clan Unicorn, there's Clan Scorpion. If you play Legend of the Five Rings, you know all these things. Clan Dragon, Clan Lion. Even though there's more than 5 clans, it's only a 5-player game, which is kind of weird, but whatever. So you're going to be drawing 5 combat chits. You're going to put them face up, and you're going to lay them on the map face down. And everybody's going to lay them face down, and then you flip and resolve them. Now, my daughter loved this game because it's a really quick game. We played in like 45 minutes, and right off the bat, the board's small enough, you're going to be in someone's face right off the bat. It is extremely aggressive, and you're going to be battling people. My wife didn't like it because of the chit draw. Because you can get like, you can draw these chits, you're like, dude, I want to attack, but you don't have that much military. You've got like boats and like a shinobi, which can go somewhere, and maybe some bluff tokens. And she played Lion, and she never got her really strong military tokens. But for what it is, as a faster paced, I would say like Game of Thrones game where you're vying for areas on the board, it's pretty good. It definitely plays better at a higher player count. At 2, it wasn't good at all. Kate didn't like it at 2. I thought the game was a bust. We played it at 4. She liked it. We played it at 5, and it just took off at 5 because you have more people fighting for territory on the board. You're trying to negotiate with people not to attack you. You're trying to get these things. You got a secret objective you're trying to get, and you're trying to get board presence, and you're trying to get, if you get a territory, you get a special card you can execute. It's pretty fun. It's not the heaviest game. It's not the longest game, but for a $40 game, it's good. And I would recommend it. Just know that there is some randomness, and the randomness is the chit draws are going to put out. But the way they mitigate that is that you can put those chits anywhere on the board to freak people out. When you reveal them, if they're placed illegally, they're removed. So you could like put some big thing in someone's territory and say, this is a raid token. It's going to nuke you and like freak people out and have people react to it, and they flip it and it's nothing. That's my kind of game. I like that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lukewarm review right now for Battle for Rokugan. But if
lukewarm popping up again, it's wearing its ugly head.
It's for what it is, it's pretty good, and I'll play it some more, and we'll see how long. It's just be one of those games that you'll play it a while, and then be like, and it'll go on the shelf, and you'll probably never touch it again, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
But you can do worse for $35.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a big box, like a big investment, but it does, remind me just in the way that it looks of Three Kingdoms Redux. But that game is just, it's this amazing, Asian themed game that is mostly cardboard chits, like you'd said, and then some cards and stuff. But that game though is quite a bit different. That's like this epic, expansive game. And so what you're saying with Battle for Rokugan is that it's actually kind of simple and a little bit less than amazing.
Yeah, it was described to me as it was a quick, fun game. Like, okay, cool. But I can pack it with all my Legend of the Five Ring cards. When I'm like, hey guys, let's play this for a while, then we can go back to playing our L5R.
Nice. All right. Well, I have a feeling that Andy's not going to have anything to say about that. But maybe he will have something to say about not 18CZ. Well, maybe 18CZ. Andy, what are you going to talk about?
I'm actually going to change mine just because I decided I want to play 18CZ a little more before I say too much about it. Initial impressions were positive, but we'll see. I do want to talk about 1862. I've got one game of that in. I'm starting another one now online. Mm-hmm. This is, standard 18XX, only not standard at all. Basically, the way I feel about 1862 was the designer looked at all the little rules you would normally have, and then like the common mistakes people make based on those rules, and then said, let's make a game based on those. So in this game, there's like a parliamentary round where basically You auction to start companies in this parliamentary round. And if you start a company in the parliamentary round, it's full capitalization, which means you get all the money up front. Then you go to a stock round. If you start a company in the stock round, you do partial capitalization. So you get money each time you buy a share. There's 3 different kinds of companies. There's local railways, express railways, and freight railways. And they all calculate revenue differently. So if you're doing like a local railway, you can count the big stops and the towns. If you're doing express, you count just the big town or the big cities that you go through. And if you have a freight train, you only count the start and the end hexes, but then you get money for each hex you go through. So you're trying to like finagle all of that. Then you can merge companies to make basically companies that can run 2 different kinds of trains. So there's mergers that make weird companies, and but this game is insane. That's just, it's different than any 18xx I've ever played. It's just weird, but it's a lot of fun. Basically, I think the goal is to figure out how to combine companies in ways that are most profitable in the long run. So in the play I was doing, I was coming up pretty much dead last. I was like, God, this is not working.
I'm not surprised by that.
No, not really. Well, the other 2 people had played. But what was weird was, like, when you merge the companies, right? So you do a 2-for-1 trade-in. So you're losing money every time you merge your company. So I'm like, why would you do that? And then at one point, I basically had to do it to keep from, like, going bust. And so I merged them together, and I'm like, oh, well, now I'm really going to come in dead last. And then I ran my trains, and I'm like, wait, like, this is a crap load of money. And, all my stock movements go up to 4 times in this game. So what happens is you take this initial loss in share value, but then you start rocketing up the stock chart because you've got all this extra potential. So I ended up with 2 companies merged together with basically 2 of the highest ranked trains. And like my stock went from crap to like really good stock within just like 2 operating rounds, because it was like going up 4 times every time I ran the new company. So there's definitely this weird balance. And I think this goal of this game is, how do you combine the different companies? The nice thing about this one as well is we're playing a second game of it, and I can already see this one coming out differently, because there's 20 companies in the game. You're only going to play with 16 of them. Only 8 of them are available at the beginning of the game, and then 4 come out about mid-game and 4 come out late game. Each company is going to start as either a local express or a freight train company, and that is also randomly determined. So while all the companies have a fixed location on the board, the order at which you can get them, plus what kind of company they're ultimately going to be, really causes a lot of variability into this game.
That's not very common for 18xx game. Do you think, Andy, that it's starting to sort of leak into the 18xx market that there's, a desire to have, like a variability from game to game? Because from what I understand, until like this year, until hearing you talk about 1822 and now this game, that's pretty much unheard of. Like, the game is what the game is in an 18xx. That's kind of part of what 18xx players want, right? What's changed?
I think some of the newer ones have some variability to them to a lesser or greater degree. So, for example, you look at 18 Ireland, which came out I think it was 17, but it has a random order of what companies you can pick from. And so that won't always be the same. I think, it's like anything else, new design space gets explored as the games go. And I think with sort of the increased numbers of these games being made now, People are just exploring things in more different ways and kind of seeing what they can do to tweak the system to be more enjoyable or more different, or what they are envisioning out of it. So I don't know. I think that's good. I think if you're going to have a game that can be played lots of times, there needs to be a little bit of variability into it.
Whoa. Hold on, Andy. Hold on. That's a pretty big statement right there. I think we should get a stenographer to make sure that one gets taken down for the record, because I am definitely going to hold on to that one. You've just given me ammo, and I appreciate it.
Well, the counter argument, of course, to that is when someone goes, well, we need variability so we can play it lots of times. And my counter to that is, yeah, because who plays a board game like 20 times these days?
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, but, you know.
No, but I think 1862, that it could be one you get a good run for your money. Like, it's variable enough, new things are going to happen a lot. So it's really enjoyable. I'm looking forward to the second play of it, because I can already see it playing out differently, and I'll report back on for further thoughts down the road. So anyway, that's 1862. Right. Out of print. Good luck.
Of course, all of those games are. Isn't this one is, you know, it was never really in print to start with, right, Andy? It just is.
Well, no, this one was a Kickstarter, and it first came out when I first thought about getting into 18xx, and it was like $60 then, and I was like, nah, I shouldn't waste money.
60?
I want to start.
That's like a third of the cost of an 18xx game.
No. Yeah, so this is how it works, because what I did is I skipped out. I'm like, let me do 1889 first, get my feet wet. And then, you know, I thought about getting it. I saw it in online stores. I was like, yeah, no, that can be down the road. And then about the time where I'm like, yes, this game I want.
Boom, impossible
Can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then, like, this company in England that I've ordered a game or two from in the past was like, hey, we found, like, you know, 10 copies of 1862 back in the corner of the warehouse. I was like, buy right now. And of course, paid twice as much money as I, you know, would have paid for it. But I have it now. I want to play it. It's awesome. But it definitely falls into the category of 18xx games that take the system and just twist it on its head.
So is this more of a, like, would you say that because you're looking at different permutations of companies and when they come out and what they are, do you think that this skews then more towards like an operations style game, or is there quite a bit of stock market shenanigans that accompany it?
I would say this is probably going to be more of a operations, how you combine the oddities of the companies in the best way is going to turn out for you. I mean, the stock does move down, I believe, for each share sold, maybe, or it might be once. But yeah, not a lot of stock shenanigans, I think, in this game. It's going to be basically, did you make the best decisions, and whether you got full cap, partial cap, or what kind of companies you combine together. Because in this one, you can also own like 100% of your company. You can, I mean, like basically sell it all off and get out of it. So yeah, it's more about how you play around with that, because the other thing with this one that's weird is the map. Like, the map is small. Like, you are going to be in each other's face within just a couple operating rounds. And you're even allowed to like token over a starting company's hex.
You mean preventing that company from...
No, apparently if it starts, then it just blasts your token out of the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you can use it to temporarily block other people from getting there.
Of course.
So, but yeah, there's very, very few hexes in this game that are not starting locations for companies. Yeah. So, yeah, you're constantly in each other's way and whatnot. And it's also weird.
Hexes in a small map. That's quite a decent chunk.
Yeah, well, and the other weird thing is like, you know, the towns, like the small black ones that can give you some revenue. If you upgrade the yellows to greens on this one, it destroys the town.
Like, it just makes it so there's no dot there at all?
No dot there at all. But then somebody else on their action can place a new dot there. Like it's a weird game, man. It's really weird.
I feel like you could dot.
Basically, I'm going to start off teaching this to 18xx players, going, all your 18xx experience that has allowed you to easily figure out a new, none of that will work here.
I feel like that can be used as probably quite a weapon. Like, putting a dot in the midst of, like if you got a better train that can either skip the dot or, incorporate the dot without being hurt by it, and somebody else is using that same bit of track for one of their runs, and they are, like stuck with the smaller train, you could use the dot aggressively. I mean, every single time I hear about something you can do in an 18xx game, Andy, I'm immediately thinking, like, how can this be used to ruin my game?
Yeah, basically all the funky mechanisms of these games is the first thing you ask yourself is it a tool? Is it a weapon?
The answer is, if it's a tool, it is a weapon in some way, in some context. Everything 18xx is a weapon.
No, but this one was really, really good. I'm really looking forward to getting my second play going of it. So, but this one has some legs, I think. So that's 1862.
Cool.
If you can still find copies.
Yeah, good luck. It's an Andy game, so you know if you listen to Andy that that's what you're in for. So, yeah, let's go from the heaviest game we've talked about in a month or so, which would be since the last time Andy was on, up until let's now just bring it all the way back down with my review. So I've got a little smorgasbord of reviews because my first couple are going to be fairly brief. The first one's Deckscape. There's 2 Deckscape games out, and I played them both, the Fate of London and the Test Time, or Time Test, or something like that. But basically, Deckscape is the most mechanically simple of any of the escape room type games, in which you are going to be just looking at a deck of cards. They're big cards. They're double-sided, so it's actually like, it's a 60-card deck, but there's, they're double-sided, so there's up to 120 cards. There's some cards that are just like, there's buffer cards to make sure you don't actually look at the bottom of the deck, which is kind of nice. And other escape room games could learn from that. That way you don't accidentally flip over the bottom card and see, this is something. Anyway, in Deckscape, like I said, it's mechanically simple because all you're doing is just looking at this deck in order, and you've got cards that are puzzles and cards that are like pieces or artifacts or souvenirs or something. I forget what exactly to say, objects. But basically, you'll hold on to objects and be basically told to keep going through the deck. And whenever you get to a puzzle, it is some sort of obstruction to stop you from moving forward. And usually, you have to figure out the puzzle, and it's kind of informal. Like, you can write it down on a piece of paper, but you can kind of just say it to yourself or point at what it is and go with it. It's kind of up to your honor. When you flip over the card, the solution's always on the back. I said there's 60 cards in this game. 30 of these cards generally are puzzles. So you're talking about the most puzzles bang for buck wise of any of the escape room games. But like I said, they're mechanically fairly simple. It is a puzzle usually. It usually incorporates several other bits of information you got to see. But like as far as, there's no shiny app, there's no cutting up of cards. You can use things, you can play this multiple times. Basically, there's only one card that you're supposed to write on just to keep track of your time for, like, keeping track of your points, which you can just do that on a separate piece of paper. I don't know why you'd have to write on the card they give you for that. But I would just say that, when I first started playing Deckscape, I thought, is this really it? Is it really just, we work through this deck of cards? I was so wrong with my first thought. There's so much game here. There's so many puzzles, and it does tell a story. Each of these games has a story with a real denouement, a finale moment where you get to make some sort of a choice that has multiple endings, and it's just really cool and interesting to read through those. I loved that aspect of Deckscape, and I thought that as far as it went, Deckscape probably has the highest quality of puzzle in it, and the most bang for your buck in terms of, this is just a deck of 60 cards, but there's so many puzzles here. Very, very cool. And maybe, it's in the running for one of my favorite of this game system. I think I still like the flair of the app additions from Unlock and the way that it's just so tense and such an energy shot. But Deckscape is absolutely incredible. And I have a theory on these escape room games. I think that if you look at them on Board Game Geek, if you look at like the community ratings, I want you to read it kind of like this. Like, people rate games on Board Game Geek, give it a number rating, the same way they do on IMDb with movies. And I think that whenever people are proven that they're dumb, like if you don't solve a puzzle in a game, I feel like people consider that the game's fault, because otherwise it's my fault and I'm not dumb. I don't know if you knew this, but I'm perfect. I'm not dumb. So I think that escape room games tend to have lower ratings if they're more difficult. For me personally, I would say that the Fate of London is a very difficult game. We had tons of puzzles that we could not figure out. But it was excellent, absolutely excellent. So go into it knowing that in mind. Expect a very high difficulty level. It doesn't say on the box. I don't remember it saying anything about being difficult, but it is really difficult. Test time is much more like, we only had 1 or 2 puzzles that we got like a technically we didn't get it. Or something that we missed. So test time, definitely do that one first. Show it to people, and then play Fate of London. It's a much more difficult game, but I love them both. I think they're both excellent games. Now, on to my next little mini review, which is Huntakiller. I was very interested in this system. It is it's a ridiculous fad that's just sweeping the internet right now, where you purchase a subscription, where you get a monthly package of like a few pieces of paper, like newspaper articles, a letter or something like that, and you pay $30 a month to get this very small amount of materials. And you're supposed to be like kind of piecing out a murder that happened, or a series of murders, or a crime. It sort of unfolds as you're reading this. And it's done in different seasons. Like season 1 has like 8 episodes in it. And you're supposed to like, find each of these artifacts and find out where they're going. The problem is Huntakiller expects you to go online for clues. Whenever I did this, I found that half of the stuff that I was finding online was like spoilers of people that had already played the season and episode I was in, because they sort of like made up these individuals, like they were created places or created individuals that didn't actually exist. And so that was kind of disappointing. You're supposed to use like a forum online to, like ask questions from other people and get hints from other people that are investigating the same thing. And that's kind of the same idea. It's just like, well, they're going to give you the spoiler if you can't figure it out. So it gave me very little to go off of. My entire group, my wife, my parents, we spent like probably 3 hours on Huntakiller, and it was one of the most ridiculously pointless experiences I can imagine I've ever had in board games. There's not any real progress made. I spent $30 and I did not get to any sort of conclusion in any way, and it didn't lead me to expect anything. All the stuff online was just saying, oh, wait till you get to episode 3, you're really gonna, it really gets interesting there. I'm not gonna spend another $30 to get like another 10 pieces of slips of paper. Not when I've got the excellent value that I can get in a game, that's marketed towards gamers, in these like Deckscape and Unlock and all these other systems. Huntakiller is like, it's taking the world by storm, and I feel like it's doing it in this really weird, manipulative and it doesn't work as a game. Like it's so difficult for me to even find the words, because it's not giving me anything to go off of. It's not giving me any sort of, like, I'm not getting to any conclusions when I watch an episode. You can say that that's kind of like, like binging a series on Netflix, but a series on Netflix doesn't cost me $240 to get through, and every single episode I end up with like a few pieces of paper. That's all that it is. I get a few pieces of paper that don't lead to any meaningful conclusions, and I'm expected to pay $30 again, and they get you hooked up on this subscription method. I was so disappointed in this game, and I think that it largely is, like, maybe it's just not for gamers. Maybe we as gamers are spoiled by, like expecting a developed, like, and well play tested and thought out experience. But this to me was just a box full of artifacts and garbage that wasn't worth even a fraction of what they were charging for it. And they just expect you to buy, $90 worth of stuff before you actually get anywhere. Huntakiller, I am done with it. So yeah, 3 hours, really, really frustrated. So anyway, now for my real review, which is sitting behind me here, Fog of Love. Fog of Love is a role-playing style game, but there is a like way to win and lose, but it's mainly a comedy, or a romantic comedy in board game form. The main reason I'm saying this is my wife loves this game. it is like it's becoming her favorite game that she's ever played, because basically what you are doing is you are creating a bunch of you have goals that you choose secretly and that you can only see. Then you get traits that you play on the other player because you have these like shared goals for your relationship. And then you will play scenes, which are cards out of your hand. And there's scenes that are sweet, scenes that are serious, scenes that are just drama that kind of stress your relationship. And what it allows you to do is sort of manipulate as a couple what your values are. You also have your own individual values that you're going to be trying to achieve with these traits as well. You'll find that sometimes your values conflict with the other players, and you have to sort of decide, you know, like, how much is this worth to me? Can I still achieve happiness in my relationship, even if I have to sort of sacrifice one of my traits, you know, my inherent traits? Like, is it okay, or is this relationship not going to work? As you play through varying scenarios, which just keep adding more and more dimensions to the gameplay, you're going to start introducing bluffing, and you can actually break up. You can, like, you know, like, you're supposed to be in a relationship the whole game, and at the end, you can break up. But if you see that coming from another player, and you think that they're going to break up with you and break your heart, then you can, like, you know, play the honorable exit and be like, I'm out of this. And if they were looking to break your heart and you ended the relationship first, then you're like the one who wins. So that adds a little bit of bluffing and, you know, like, what's going to happen here? You're working towards these shared relationship goals, your own personal goals, but I haven't even got into really what attracts us about this game. And that is that it seems to have the finger on the pulse of a romantic comedy sort of experience. And that's what my wife loves. She is always looking for, you know, she watches The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. She loves these types of games. The story that the designer put in the actual rule book is like about basically the same story of me and my wife, which is like, I wanted, you know, he wants to get his wife playing games, but his wife doesn't like themes that are like fantasy or war, things like that. She wants, you know, to be talking about, you know, she loves like reading Nicholas Sparks books. She loves, you know, watching Me Before You, and you know, there's like a lot of different things that are just totally ignored in board games. I think that, and then we held hands, which was a previous game where you couldn't really talk with each other, sort of acknowledge, you know, like, that communication is really what she's looking for. You know, a game that sort of plays with communication and allows her to take on a role. And I saw my wife role-playing. I saw my wife role-playing in this game, creating a character, role-playing it out, talking about, you know, like, when she read a scene, you know, she would develop a backstory for who she was and for what we were doing. And that right there is something that I've not only have I not seen that in this context of a romantic comedy, but I've not seen that really in any board games in a box. Like, any RPG experience in a box seems to always, like, really skew towards dice combat and you being sort of like shoehorned into a specific storyline where you like set up scenarios and play through scenarios. This is even one of my favorite games of all time, Gloomhaven, that does this. But, you know, as far as the story goes, you're really kind of on a sort of rail. Here, you are creating this story as it goes and really creating this character, and that's the way that you communicate with your game partner. Now, I'm not recommending this game for anybody that listens to my game recommendations from a perspective of, like, you know, what I love in strategy games and what I'm looking for in a regular game experience. This is something very, very different, very interesting, and exceedingly successful. There's nothing like it, and the production itself is beautiful in a way that attracts my wife. And it's like, you know, everything on it has this sort of like Paisley, looks like one of the types of like journals or notebooks or sketchbooks. Like, she does a lot of adult coloring books. And this is precisely the type of art that like reminds me of those sort of, you know, designs that look kind of like a doodle, but in a really like tasteful and artsy way. This is the type of game here that you're talking about getting in Fog of Love. So if that sounds at all interesting, plus you've got different scenarios, like, it eventually gets to the point where we're going to have a paranormal relationship where it's like paranormal activity in a relationship, you know, comedic romantic comedy form. And I'm really excited to experience that. It's one of the like Kickstarter stretch goals, but let's put it like this. I expected Fog of Love to be like kind of a cheap cash in on the idea of guys want to play games with their significant other. You know, they're guys that are trying to get their significant other into board games, and this is just a cash in. No, this is like one of the most beautiful, fleshed out. You're talking poker chips on level of like splendor that are used to make your decisions in this game, with other beautiful pieces. You actually have like a plastic container to hold all of your own player pieces that says Fog of Love on it. I mean, you're talking like a grade A, one of the best productions I've ever seen in a game. And it is absolutely not what I expected, and I am so impressed by that. So Fog of Love, if any of that sounds interesting to you, I'm not saying go out and buy it. I'm saying if that sounds interesting to you and you find yourself in a situation like that, this game delivers. It has me role-playing. So that means there's something wrong with me, or there's something special about the game.
Former.
Spread love. So, TC, what interests me most, I know that you have like, your wife. What's interesting about this, having met Carissa and seen her on several episodes, like, would she totally reject this inherently because she embraces the type of gamer culture and gamer fantasy I don't want to say stereotypes, but tropes, right? She loves D&D. I remember her showing off the bag of D20s that you guys have. Does that mean that this for her is going to be like, nah, that's too girly, or is she going to get into the role-playing aspect here as well?
I'll tell you what, if I see it on a rental shelf, I will try it out with her. My gut feeling is this is not her type of role playing she'll want to participate in.
It's only 2-player, and you're not going to be able to have the kids involved. So, I mean, that's something, that's something to consider. So it's definitely like a couple, like you could make a romantic, like a date night out of this game. And honestly, that's what it kind of feels like, it's playing a board game, but it feels like a date night. So it's like, who's getting the better end of this deal? Is it me because we're playing a board game, or is it my wife because it feels like we're on a date? Maybe it's both.
I don't know what happens next.
All right.
The woohoo expansion.
Yeah, expansion.
Yeah. Okay, Andy, there are cards for that already in the game. It's like, let's say like. It says 17 plus, and it's very tasteful. Okay, like if this was to be an actual romantic comedy, I would say it would be PG or PG-13 at most. Like there are some scenarios, but there's nothing in this game that's all suggestive except for mild profanity, but never never with sexual innuendo, really. But it does seem to have the finger on the pulse of people. Like it has, like what are we going to do with our relationship status? So I don't know if that's going to date this game. Or if, but it feels like, you're talking about, what I'm talking about is it feels very current, it has people, it has classic love scenes, that you'd imagine like running after somebody in an airport. And it has some, like the boombox scene from, the John Cusack. Who is it? What is it? Where he's got the boombox.
Say anything.
Yes. It has that like kind of in a car, there's so many different scenes in this game that all pay homage to romantic movies. So
is there like a critical failure scene where it's like Anakin and Padme in Star Wars 2?
Yeah.
Like sand. It gets everywhere.
Fog of Love. I love I'm reading the comments, man. I gotta like update people that are hearing this. The comments here have been hilarious. They're discussing like waiting for a dice combat version. Dice combat in Fog of Love.
I'm in.
It's the Klingon Fog of Love expansion.
Oh man, yeah, that would be an interesting role-playing game. I'm sure Chris would get that one.
There already is Ferengi ones where it's like like we're our first trip to IKEA. What are we gonna buy? And you can be like, we're not buying anything. Everything affects like your qualities in these different like sort of traits. No, they're not traits. The traits are different. But they're like, you've got two sides of extroversion, right? You have like the up arrow is like you're extroverted. The down arrow is like you're shy and introverted. And everything will either give you an up arrow in one thing or a down arrow in a different thing or the same thing. And it's like your different choices you want to match, or you want to get some sort of a way that's going to gel based on the scene. But at the same time, you're working on your own sort of like hidden goals, some of which are shared, some of which are individual. It's an interesting and thrilling thing. Back to the comments, though, we had some hilarious one. Fog of Love, the Netflix and chill expansion. Netflix and chill. That's a great line there. You know what that means? That's something. Yeah, I can tell that you're a teacher there because that's an interesting statement. Oh my goodness. So all all kinds of adult coloring books. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Adult coloring books are just they're not kids coloring books. They're generally on nicer paper. They're not. Okay. Moving on.
Joe, you're digging yourself deeper. Joe, come back.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my barrage of reviews. Thank you so much for your patience and your awesome comments that made me chuckle here. And I think, just to do a quick comment there to address what Jerry had said earlier. Thank you, Jerry, for bringing this up. I mentioned it, and then we held hands, and then I compared it to Fog of Love, but I didn't really say whether I liked it. I did not like And Then We Held Hands at all. We tried it once, and it was like really kind of like, it didn't feel very much like a game I wanted to explore more. It limited your communication to like nonverbals, and I felt kind of like that was almost like so restrictive that it made the game not very engaging. And the Fog of Love is precisely the opposite. It has you digging into your creative side while at the same time playing this little game on its own. So for what it's worth, if you picked up And Then We Held Hands, I think that Fog of Love would do maybe what you were looking for, because that's kind of what it did for me, more so than that game did. All right, gentlemen, let's turn from the past to the future in our topic for tonight in doing predictions for 2018. Let's go ahead and go back to, we've all got a list here that we're ready to address.
And Kristen might come on to give her one prediction. So we'll
oh boy.
We're going to have a little special guest. I'm excited. Yes, the future.
Yay. All right. So, all right. Well, Andy, let's hear from you first. What is, and we can actually let's hear from you for one, and we can keep going around. Let's go through this in the order that I'm looking at right now. Let's go Andy, TC, Trent, and then me. We can just kind of keep cycling through that. How's that sound?
Okay.
Andy?
That's good.
All right.
Oh, no. Andy's, I have a prediction. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to go out of turn. I predict that in 2018, Andy's internet connection may have a problem. I see Andy is not responding. And that would mean, oh, there he is. Andy, you're back.
Oh, no, I've been here.
Have you seen it?
I don't know. It could be having an issue. It's MediaCom.
Aha. Andy is on probably a 20-second delay, I think. So, yes, Andy, you're behind us. So this is going to be a little bit interesting, man. I would have to say that, this is us speaking from the future to Andy. So, TC, why don't we skip over Andy for right now and give your prediction of the future? And you can tell Andy what it's like 20 seconds into the future, too.
Sweet. 20 seconds in the future, it's still warm over here. Okay, I got some boring predictions and some crazy ones. We'll go with my boring predictions first. My prediction for 2018, after glancing over the top rankings of Board Game Geek and looking at what's topping the list right now, I predict that in 2018 we will see more board games with gentler designs with an emphasis on teamwork. Yes, it seems like most of the games out there that are skyrocketing towards the top are co-op games that aren't very difficult. Even the top-rated customizable card game is Arkham Horror, the card game, and you can dial that thing up and down as hard or as easy as you want. So my prediction is we're going to see a lot more games coming out in 2018. They're going to involve a lot of teamwork, and they're going to be not as harsh. Thoughts?
I agree with that.
I think I have a statement that's kind of similar to that. Yeah. And I guess I'll get to it when I do mine, but I would say that to a certain extent, I think I agree with you. I don't know if it's just going to be co-ops that are like that. I think that, co-ops are kind of their own thing that I think are going to grow in popularity separately, regardless of their difficulty. But I do think that for newer players, you want a co-op that's going to be, I think, a little bit more, I guess, have the ability to dial down the difficulty, because not everybody wants the pain, Andy. Not everybody wants it. What do you think, Trent? What's yours? I'm asking you for your first prediction of 2018.
I predict that Disney is going to buy a major game company, either Asmodee or Hasbro.
All right, dude. Think they're going to buy?
I think that
buy Asmodee.
I think Hasbro's a better fit, but I think Asmodee, because they're privately owned, will be a lot easier to buy. Hasbro, they have to buy a ton of stock to do it.
Yeah.
And it'd be easier just to buy Asmodee. I think both companies are large enough that they could essentially become the game arm of Disney.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have actually, for my first one, I'll choose my one here that is that goes along with what you said. I think they will buy. I was thinking they were going to start buying Stronghold and Renegade, and if they don't already own Renegade. But I think we're going to see them actually fully purchase what's left of Mayfair, which I think has already been talked about maybe.
Are you referring to Asmodee gobbling this up?
Yes, I think Asmodee is going to keep. I think before they get purchased by Disney, you're going to see Asmodee grow even more. I think you're going to see less and less. I think the only publishers that are really going to be on their own, I think are going to be, your like designer, publisher, everything team, where a designer sort of self-publishes and goes through, like, say, Kickstarter. I think the big question mark, though, is do we think that Asmodee is ever going to purchase Cool Mini or not?
I don't know.
I feel like Cool Mini or not is just, specifically there to exist as competition to Asmodee. Like that, they're like the ones, sort of like looking to be the biggest, the Amazon to Walmart.
I think Cool Mini or Not had some big growing pains this year. I think they went. I mean, the Godfather Corleone's Empire was supposed to be huge. I mean, that game was hyped for years before it even came out. And they even did a tabletop showcase where all these podcasters and whatnot got together to promote this thing. And it came out and it didn't go anywhere. I mean, I think it was the wrong license to get. I think they probably paid too much for the license. I remember when EA got the Godfather license, tried to make a Godfather video game, and it didn't do well either. Yeah. So I think everything was, I don't know. I'm willing to bet the Godfather didn't do as well for Cool Mini as they wanted it to. And getting Eric Lang on probably wasn't the end all they wanted it to be. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where Cool Mini or Not goes from here. Because it looks like they're going back, because you're going to hype a game of theirs next, if I was looking at the hype list correctly. And it looks like that's going to be another Kickstarter game. Yeah. So we'll see where Cool Mini or Not goes from here. It seems like this year they tried to move away from Kickstarter to get their own product out into the mass market, and it kind of fizzled on them. But that's my perception on it.
So this year would be the or not part of their name.
Yeah. So the or not year. Cool Mini. Yep. It is their or not year. Yeah. All right, Andy. It sounds like you're up to speed here. You're living in the future, I guess in the present now. So why don't you give us your first prediction?
Okay. I'll go with snarky first. There will be a big Kickstarter that will be overhyped and be rated in quality because there's a lot of stuff in the box coming out this year.
I thought that was already. I thought it was Massive Darkness.
Yeah, I profited from Massive Darkness. Nothing wrong with that. I backed it and then flipped it. Yeah.
But did you play it, Trent?
No.
Of course you didn't.
Massive Darkness falls into the category of board game names that sound much more amusing if you think of pooping.
Yeah.
I'm a middle school teacher. I'm immature.
Mm-hmm. You like Kings of Aaron's theme?
Yep, exactly. That's good stuff.
Goodness gracious. Yeah.
Yes, we've gone there.
Yeah, you guys, come on. Nobody here is changing diapers right now. This is
not for years, and I'm very glad I'm never going to have to do that ever again.
Oh God, I made a deal with my wife that I would do every one of those if she fed the kid. Oh my God.
That's awful, Andy. Like you got the crap end of that deal.
No. This was much better for me. Because it was over with, done with quickly. I'm a biology major. Everything's academic. Doesn't really bother me. But, like, I have just enough obsessive compulsive tendencies. Like if my hands get sticky and I can't wash them quickly, there were times like I was shaking and like I looked at my wife and I'm like, take over if you want.
How did we get here
to live?
What have you done,
let's get
Andy?
out. Come on, Joe, lead us out.
All right. Well, with another, no, you need to lead us out here, TC. You're the one who's next in line.
Okay. Well, first I want to address the Disney buying out Asmodee. If Disney was going to buy out anything at this point, I figured they'd be buying out EA after the disaster that was Star Wars Battlefront 2. You know, I looked at that. I was like, dude, if Disney needs to buy anything and get a franchise back from someone, it's got to be from EA, because they canceled like this amazing single player Star Wars game and released this atrocious loot box fest that was Battlefront 2. So, but I would be curious to see because if they do their own board game company, you know they're going to yank the license away from Fantasy Flight and anybody that holds that Marvel license. So that'd be a very interesting. That, but I don't know. You know, $1 million for Disney may be chump change. They may be looking at the billions that their movies are going to make. So who knows at this point?
Yeah. Well, they own like everything now.
Yeah, which is scary. Kind of like
what was it, Battlefront 2 or 1? Somebody reviewed that and basically described it as a hate generator.
Yeah, Battlefront 1 was DLC content purchase treadmill. And they're like, oh, we're going to fix it with Battlefront 2. And they had this loot system. We had to buy these boxes, and everyone blew up. They like posted on Reddit. It became like the most down posted post on Reddit. So they like,
ever.
Yeah, and then they like said, oh no, we're fixed. It's going to be free for now. And yeah, don't want to get started on Star Wars video games. Anyway,
it's been downhill since the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games.
Oh God, I love those games. The Emperor's Hand and TIE Fighter. Yeah. Okay, my second prediction. I actually looked at, I did a Trent here and started looking at what made money last year in the board game industry and the breakdown of all that. And what I found out was, as of 2016, the board game industry became a $1 billion industry. And the way they broke it down was like 305 million were the board games, 205 million were the non-collectible miniature games, and get this, guys, $750 million in the board game industry is generated from collectible games, and they included card games, dice games, and mini games. And that probably explains why Fantasy Flight went with the Star Wars Destiny route with their collectible dice game. Because I'm sure that thing made bank. Even though we talk about it like, oh, it didn't go anywhere. I knew people who threw like $300 at this thing before they ended up not doing it anymore. So my prediction for 2018 is we're going to see more collectible games. I mean, I even looked, Steve Jackson's trying to get onto it with the Munchkin collectible card game.
Gosh.
You know, I'm seeing a lot more. WizKids, I'm sure the only reason they're still going is because of that Dice Masters collectible dice game. So either Fantasy Flight, some big name company is going to throw some kind of collectible game out there that's going to be like a 3-month trend that people are going to throw a ton of money at, and then we're going to dump it like it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're going to see that. I think that that's kind of been the case, though, always, TC. I don't think. I mean, is there going to be a peak? You know, are you saying that there's going to be an increase in collectible games, or are we just...
Yeah, because it seemed like it kind of died out for a while after the Magic collectible card game. Because remember, after Magic came out in like 91 or 92, like there was like a collectible card game for any license under the sun, and it died down. I think we're going to see it kind of start to peak up again in terms of maybe just not card games, but probably like, I mean, collectible dice games seems to be gaining traction, and I see a lot of people still doing collectible mini games, like those Hero Clicks things and stuff. So I think we're going to see a whole new trend of collectible gaming here in 2018. It's going to break us, and we're going to hate it and complain about it a lot.
Collectible train games.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Isn't
that model training?
Yeah, no, you buy packets of hex tiles.
Yeah, and they're all randomized. So you don't know which hex tiles you're going to get, and then you'll have to meet together with your 18X buddies to get the one tile you want. I'll trade you 15 of my Y-axis junctions for one of your 4.
You're gonna buy a pack. It'll be collectible packs of track. That'll be the 18xxccg.
No, they'll do it like the one with the dice. So there'll be track tiles and shares of stock.
Yeah. I think
that probably has about as much chance of success as my idea of an 18xx dexterity game.
Or an 18's what is it? Sodor? Hodor.
Yeah, 18 Sodor.
18 Sodor.
Sodor. Sorry, not Hodor, Sodor. All right.
Except the Thomas the Train people, they're crazy on that license, man.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to convince them though, Andy.
No, I read of it. Like, when they did Ant-Man and like they had the Thomas the Train, like the company that owns them put them under so many restrictions. It's like Thomas cannot actively cause injury to anybody in your movie. Things like that.
Yeah. Well, I would like now to move on to Trent. What is your next prediction?
I predicted there's going to be a lot of people at the end of 2018 that will call Rising Sun the game of the year.
Wow. So your game that you're most excited for in 2018, is that what you're saying? Or do you really think that it's going to be like a movement?
No, I just think at the end of the year, you're going to see a lot of people that do like top 10 lists putting it on that list or near the top of it.
All right, dude.
I'm not saying necessarily I would.
Okay.
I'm just saying I see it on a lot of lists. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I'm excited for it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think
I think it'll be a similar hit to Blood Rage, but it'll have a little bit heavier appeal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think will happen.
It'll be interesting to see, man. Yeah. I struggle so much with these predictions just because I'm so much like, well, I'll have to wait and play it. But it's like that's kind of like against the idea of a prediction in general. It's like you have to, and that's why every time I would like start writing one, I would say that same thing. What do you think, TC? Are you on the up to ride the Rising Sun?
There is so much hype on Rising Sun. I mean, it is. It was like one of the highest.
Are you not in the house of the Rising Sun then? You're not.
It will definitely be. I'm going to agree with Trent on this one. It's going to be at most people's top 5. I'm going to call it top 5 right now.
Do you think though that hype can do that much, or do you think that it really is already getting that much positive, like actual reviews, like substantial reviews?
No, I haven't heard it.
Hype can do that much. Look at Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Trent. All right. Well, you asked for this one. My next prediction for 2018 is that Trent's going to be moving on to the newest and greatest FFG living card game.
Which would you think?
Conversely, TC, you're a part of this one too. TC is going to struggle to keep up with the L5R meta with all the releases, eventually get behind, resulting in him confronting the darker side of the LCG model.
Do you think I'll still keep up with Arkham Horror?
Arkham Horror? I think that Arkham Horror
LCG.
is different.
I think Arkham Horror and Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings are different because they're inherently not competitive.
Yeah, you can go back to them. They're like buying a game, that you can like without that competitive environment, the L5R, that's what it thrives on, and you have to be participating in the meta unless you've got your own sort of little side groups, that you're playing with, and that even starts to develop its own sort of meta. That's just kind of, the way that it goes. And that's like the beauty and what's interesting about it, what drives you to, do your homework outside and stuff. It's just, it's really jarring from my perspective where I'm so invested into an LCG, and just to feel like I'd have to invest so much more just to keep into it because I lost my footing during a 3-month commitment that kind of kept me out of gaming in general, which happens to me annually. And I feel like, to consider revisiting that every time that tennis season comes up and I coach that, still gives me the chills, man. It's I loved my time in that, but good grief, I still right now my feet are resting on a cooler. I love using for some reason like the coolers that are like soft on the outsides and stacking my games inside of it. I'm resting my feet on a cooler that's full of Game of Thrones, the card game. Cards and binders. I mean, there's $150 in there just in binders to organize the game. regardless of how much I spent on the actual cards themselves, which are more than that. So
what was like the cycle though? Just out of curiosity, because wasn't it like for the competitive side, it was like Netrunner, Game of Thrones, and now Legend of the Five Rings, or was there another one in there?
Warhammer Conquest, but it's gone away.
Yeah, that one died with.
So what's been the spacing on those? Because that's kind of what I'm curious about. Because L5R just came out last year.
It's
so
2
the question
years
is,
generally.
they seem.
Well, yeah, the L5R came out this year. Arkham Horror came out the year before that.
Yeah, but Arkham Horror I kind of put to the side. Like I'm thinking, like
I think you'll see a Lord of the Rings second edition, maybe, or something. You know, if they, I could see them doing that here, maybe in this upcoming year.
Well, yeah, I think it's just implementation of it.
Yeah, like a big tournament at Gen Con. Like it seems like there's been things like that. So I was kind of wondering if it's a yearly or sort of bi-yearly thing.
What do you think, Trent? You're probably the most up to date on the LCGs.
Every 2 or 3 years, they introduce a new one. I think they're. I suspect they're going to have more legs with L5R because of the previously existing community and the fact that they completely own the IP.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were going to do the same with Netrunner, but they screwed it up. Hey, we'll print a cycle of just where everything's broken. That sounds completely fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, it was not fun.
Trent's already pitching the Tuesdays with Maury living card game.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's my pick for Game of the Year 2018 right now. Like, you think it's going to be Rising Sun? I think we're going to pull something off here, guys, with our Tuesdays with Maury idea. I think we're going to get there. So, let's move on to another prediction from Andy. Andy's given us some salt. Do you have any sugar?
Yeah, actually, this might be a little pushing it, but I'm going to see. I think there's going to be major publishers publishing 18xx titles.
Okay.
Because I know GMT is, but I'm talking beyond GMT.
I mean, Mayfair has in the past. I mean, it wouldn't be unheard of, and people have been kind of critical of those versions, but there definitely, is some of those games that have.
I think like they're getting enough traction to where they're kind of in this weird situation where they're starting to get popular enough to kind of go past like the people doing it by hand, like your all aboard games and stuff, but they're not quite to like super everyone's like putting one out level. So at some point there's got to be a tipping point where like some major publishers start putting them out, and I think we're starting to see that with GMT. So I'm going to make the prediction that maybe at least one more does like a major release.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think within 1 to 3 years that's going to become more common, because they're just as the hobby grows, the heavy hobby grows, and you're starting to see these 18xx Kickstarters and such, and the P500s like fun crazy fast. So somebody's going to come in and try to exploit that market.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting perspective, Andy, and I agree. I think that that you could maybe see somebody. I think, Andy, what would be a big shift from what we've seen in the past would be like a company that focuses on 18xx games primarily, and that has consistent releases. Even we're just talking like one a year, right? Like P500 is a beautiful system, but it because of the structure of that, it really isn't. It isn't these people like for example, like Capstone Games taking a risk, and publishing a game or reworking a game and making sure that it's done competently. So I mean that's just where I think would be a real shift to make 2018 a different year from what we've seen before.
Yep.
All right, TC, you're up, sir.
I'm going to kind of tell on Andy on this one. It's going to be another 18xx prediction. I predict that GMT will announce a new 18xx game, and there's going to be something about it that's going to make the 18xx community complain about it all year long. So whether it's going to be like
the tiles are too thick.
The tiles are too thick, or there's going to be something about it. Or it comes with It may come with the best paper money that no one's ever going to use. I don't know. There's going to be something about it, and it's just going to send the community berserk. And I am really looking forward to this one. I'm calling this one right now in 2018.
Now, what they need to do is make like an 18xx game in like Zimbabwe, and then do like actual Zimbabwean money in the game. Because that like
trillion.
Because I think that would like legitimately cost them less than like paper money for Monopoly.
Wow. But Andy, one of the most beautiful currencies of all time is the golden and silver cows from the Great Zimbabwe game.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It's like, how much money do I start with in 18Z or whatever it is? It's like you start out with 1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars.
and
you can buy one share of stock with that.
All right, your turn, Trent.
I predict that Gen Con's going to sell out 3 or 4 months before the convention this year, and then they're going to announce a second Gen Con. They're going to have 2 annually a year.
It was the first year that it ever sold out this last year, right?
Yep, I think it's going to sell out way in advance this year, like months.
Well,
wow.
And even like smaller conventions I've heard are thinking about, like, they're not announcing anything officially, but like I've heard of various smaller conventions even that are kicking around the ideas of doing 2 in a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that I've been thinking, until we made some other plans, I was thinking about going down to Geekway to the West, which is kind of a regional con for us. It's only about 6-7 hours to drive to get to St. Louis. And, that one consistently sells out within hours of opening its door, opening up to registration. So I think, conventions, just in general, do you think conventions will start seeing conventions cropping up more and more? Because, it makes more sense to me to have a board game convention than it does so for, say like a video game convention. Like, you can play video games on your own, and the experience, you can get that same sort of experience. Whereas with board games, you want to be right there. Like, I think, more convention companies, kind of similar to PAX Unplugged, are going to be coming up. And this is not exactly something I had written down, but Trent, that's a really thoughtful prediction that had me thinking that. So what do you guys think? TC, comments? Andy?
I think it really depends on how the economy does, because it's getting so expensive to go to some of these things, and there are so many out there. Will a second Gen Con happen? I don't know. I think that we'll see more stuff like PAX. I think we'll see more like video game conventions do board game stuff. PAX Unplugged, I think, was a success that a lot of people weren't expecting. So we may see something like, Gen Con's almost becoming the E3 of board game. It's getting to that point. So we'll see. Yeah. I'm curious.
Well, the interesting thing about it, if you either you have more or have bigger ones, and as there gets to be more and more money within the board game community, like, there's only so many dates you can put a convention. At some point, they start competing with each other. Mm-hmm. And that hasn't happened in the past. So I think
it did this year, dude. This Board Game Geek BGG-Con, yeah, that hit people hard. I know that was difficult making people choose.
Yeah, and if you put a second Gen Con or a second this or that, like there's not all that many convenient days that you would put one that. Basically, there will have to be more competition for getting people at some point if they start doing that.
And I don't know if it'll be like cheaper to get there. I don't know, but it's gonna. There's gonna be more board game conventions. It'll just be interesting how they all compete with each other at some point.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I think that we're gonna see, as a prediction, a further increase in even more companies producing the sort of consumable or non-replayable games like Legacy and Escape Room. Yeah. I think that we're gonna see. I don't think that's a fad that's just going away. I think that's something that's very attractive. It makes the game a little bit more special, makes it, like when you have a huge collection of games, like, how do you choose the game? Well, I'll tell you right now, for a lot of the people around me, they want to feel like they're playing something special and not something that I just play all the time, especially if that's a game that's, that they're worried that I'm going to have like a bunch of experience with and not be very much fun, to play with, because I just know the ins and outs of the game. So I think we're going to see those games rising, and I'm actually excited and happy to hear about that. I think we'll see, this last year there was quite a few, but I think we'll start seeing, we haven't really seen too much garbage in terms of legacy style games. We haven't seen like a real crappy legacy game. And I think that 2018 will bring around the first truly awful legacy game, thus showing that legacy games are really becoming big and a staple. Until you've got a terrible game in your genre, it's not even a genre.
I think probably, though, the disposable game in the sense of not necessarily legacy ones, but like escape room ones or similar to that will probably gain in popularity because, at some point, as more and more and more games keep coming out, at some point you hit sort of your saturation point of which, you're like, I don't need another game that does these mechanisms or something, where if it's a disposable game, played it. Okay, it's gone. Chuck it in the trash. I don't know. Part of the environmentalist in me is weeping at that thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so many of these can be passed from one player to another. It's just I can never play it again. So it's kind of like a book. Do you cry every time a book gets made, Andy? Because it's kind of the same idea in that case.
Yeah, but I think those will probably come up more because I think it's something that.
Do you print things on paper, Andy, for your class?
Print things on paper?
Andy.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, you're worse than me. And you can claim to be an environmentalist, or at least have a small one living inside you. Yeah, it is suffocating.
Yeah. No, what was it? One of my students brought that up. They're like, "You're killing the trees." I'm like, they don't cut down old growth forests for paper anymore. They grow very quick trees, then chop them. It's fine.
Yeah. Sustainability. Beautiful. All right, Andy, what's your next prediction for 2018? Is 2018 going to be sustainable? Are you going to be like the harbinger, like the 2018 is going to be the big collapse, like with video games in the 80s, with comic books in the 90s, and now we've got 2018 for the big board game market collapse.
Yeah, big collapse, but not necessarily board games, like society in general, probably. It's Mad Max. We're all doomed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was I looking at? Hollenspiel will release at least one more insanely oddball game that I will fall in love with and have trouble getting anybody else to play with at game night.
All right. I have a dovetail for this one, Andy. You've asked for it. My prediction for 2018 is that 4X will raise Hollenspiel to a new critical mass, thus forcing Andy to focus his attention on a new publisher that prints pieces on a Xerox from the 1990s. I wrote all that a long time ago before we ever started talking about printing. But yeah, you're going to have to move on to a company that literally puts in a box a bunch of printer paper that's poorly printed, that even has like, all the from the light hitting at the wrong angle, and you can barely read it, and the letters look like huge, and the contrast is way up. Yeah. And Andy's going to fall in love because he has to basically make the whole game himself.
They'll have people like me write the rule book so nobody can understand it.
Yeah. It will have misspellings of any homonym in the English language will be misspelled, because at that point, Andy, I think you know how to spell those words. You just like choose to rebel against the dictionary. Like, screw that, man. Like, I'm not going to use the correct spelling of 4. Like, we're gonna put an E at the end of 4 every single time because that's the least common one.
Yeah, my wife really regrets that she taught me what Middle English was in history. So I like misspell.
You can just spell how you want.
Yeah, exactly. I just like misspell stuff. And she's like, "You misspelled that." I'm like, Middle English.
You went on?
Yeah, before the dawn of a dictionary that actually regulated a language, Andy. Unfortunately, you're missing out on a few key points in the development of the English language. Yep. All right. So I gave my little addition to Andy. It looks there, TC, like you might have a special guest here joining us to tell us her. Hey, Carissa.
Hi. Can you
Welcome.
hear me?
What is? Yeah, I can hear you. Kind of quiet. You might want to get a little bit closer for those folks that are, not wanting to turn it all the way up and then have my voice blast them out of their car seat. So what's your prediction for 2018?
Okay, so my predictions are personal. I haven't done this before.
TC.
Hey, I left it up to her.
By the way, hey, Carissa, you got to check this game out right here behind me, Fog of Love. Anyway, go ahead. What are the personal predictions?
So my main game group will, in 2018, finish Seafall.
Seafall. Yep. You did take a blood oath.
Yes, I did. As we often remind each other with what we do, gifts of flame when somebody says they can't make it. It gets ugly. So my other prediction is that in 2018, my other game group will not yet complete Pandemic Legacy.
Season 1.
Season 1.
Yeah, we just actually completed Season 1 May, and I've got it now playing with my gamers group at school, and we won. They succeeded in May.
Wow.
Oddly enough. So, yeah, and I'm telling them, like, guys, we just, every week, this is what I'm going to push for because I really want to see where this goes. And so, yeah, well, hopefully in 2018, my game group, my school gamers will get there because I'm not going to buy Season 2 until we finish Season 1.
Oh, yeah, that's what I've said, too.
Foot down, yeah.
So,
I already looked at the back of the box for Season 2, and I already feel like I spoiled the whole thing.
We started Season 1 not long after it came out, so we've been working on it for a while.
Yeah, that's a long time. You had that game like 2 years.
I know, right? And we're only, we finally made it to
September.
Yay!
Nice. So congrats on getting September. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on it. I actually got one of my students here in our live chat who's unfortunately couldn't make it to today's game. Sounds like he's crying himself over there. It's all right. It's all right, Carter. You make it on the next one, man. Help me push for it though, buddy. I need you. All right. Yeah, we don't want to turn into them. You see that? You see how they're talking about Pandemic Legacy still not getting finished? Not gonna be us. We're gonna be strong. We're gonna persevere.
Yes, do. Yeah. I'd like to finish it, but I don't have as many hopes for that one. But Seafall, definitely. So anyway, I've got to get back to getting the kids to bed. But I wanted to pop on and say hi.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, Carissa. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you guys have fun. Take care.
All right. Trent, your turn, sir. What's the next one on your list?
I had 5, and this is my 4th one. I predicted the board game bubble is going to start to pop, but you won't notice it in terms of like the top 10, top 15 games of the year. Instead, what you'll see is that a lot of like the second or third rate titles the publishers put out just stop selling. And that kind of piggybacks on what was being talked about earlier with Cool Mini or Not, where they hyped a game and it didn't sell because it honestly wasn't that good of a game.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be more and more happening more and more and more. You're going to see a lot of Kickstarters that would have succeeded a couple of years ago not making it. You're going to see a lot of like the top 2 or 3 titles from a publisher will do really well, but like the ones further down the line won't do well at all. I think that's going to start happening this year. Quality control.
I think that's an interesting, you're going to be the harbinger here, Trent. And I understand where you're coming at it from because it's not, it's still going to be like these big games are going to sell a ton and they're going to sell even more probably than they would have before, right? Because there's more folks in the hobby and, the things that rise to the top are going to be purchased by more. But yeah, I feel myself being less swayed by hype already. So maybe if that's any indicator.
Well, and I think that's interesting too, because I think that's why you're starting to see a lot of growth in sort of my oddball corners of the hobby, because it's I think it's kind of like regions people are escaping to from the 20 medium euros that came out. They're like, oh, another, what else is out there? And so I don't know, you're starting to see a lot of these weird boutique publishers like Hollandspiel having way more success than they ever predicted in games that by all rights should not do well. Like 4X. I mean, why would that do well other than just there's some weird, as people get into the hobby, they're like moving into these oddball corners, I think, when they get kind of bored with a lot of the same old, same old.
Yeah, I don't know if I am with you there, Andy. I think that it depends on what you're looking for. I think honestly that it's like kind of a dangling carrot that chases that people chase into that corner. I think that that it does sound like if you play, there's one really interesting and I think almost addictive feeling that you can get in playing a board game, and that's when you introduce a group of people to something that they've never experienced before. And that type of thing, like that sort of like, I get to be the first one to do this. And I feel like, when you're in a game group that's already established and you're just showing them, this year's new Euro, it's not the same as when you're showing them something that just, they have no other way of getting a hold of. And I feel kind of like that's why, that's what chases people to that side of the hobby. I think that, if that's what you're chasing after, then like I said, dude, I think that, Hollandspiel, if it hits a critical mass, is eventually going to be like, is it going to be interesting to if you're looking to, introduce people to something totally new or be in a totally different and unique niche?
Mm-hmm.
I've been wanting to talk to Trent about this, and I'm hoping this would come up. I think it's going to come down to oversaturation of the market, and I don't know if we're there yet or not. It's weird because if I grew up through the video game crash of the 80s, and a big factor in that was the rise of computer gaming. What was it? The Commodore 64, the Texas Instruments, the TR-80, I think it was. The fact that Atari made like a bazillion copies of E.T. and Pac-Man that they couldn't sell and had to get shipped back. So are we there yet? I don't know. I think Carmen's, is listening to this. He'd probably be more able to speak to this than I ever could. But man, I think I'll agree with the Trent that I think we're on the cusp of it. And I think what has to happen first is that Asmodee has to buy a lot more stuff, and then a lot more games have to not be doing well. And then Asmodee is going to say, hey, if you're going to be part of our company, you've got to make X amount of dollars. So you may need to make these type of games that are going to sell. At that point, we may see a saturation of the market of the same type of games that might, the same type of games that should sell that are not going to. And then you'll be stuck with a huge inventory of stuff that's not moving anywhere, because if you're in retail, that warehouse or even space on the shelf is money that you cannot be sitting on. It has to move somewhere. You can't hold on to something in the warehouse. You have to blow it out as cheap as you can, and you can't have it in the store if it's not selling. I think we're going to have to, I think it might start here, but it'll be interesting to see if it trends there, because I think a lot of the relief that's coming against this is we still have Kickstarter that lets interesting designs gets out. We have like Hollandspiel, which still publishes unique games, and we still have GMT, which they don't care about the gaming trends. They just care about what they can get 500 orders or whatever it is now of games people want to play that are in a very, very, very specific niche. I think with me and Andy, we're going to be playing our games no matter what, because we've got these weird companies that are going to support us. I'm curious overall where it's going to head.
I think that, like, for new companies to do well, they're going to have to be striking at a niche more. Like, if you look at Capstone games over the last year, like, they came out with, like, Arkwright and then just hit the right place at the right time, and then we're pumping out game after game after game. Like, I don't think you could start a new board game publishing company that predominantly specializes in midweight Euros.
Not anymore. Not with the Essen dump that happens every year.
I don't know, dude. I don't think, like, I don't just see like midweight Euros as being this, this like sort of, vast, like.
No, what I'm saying is that like there's plenty of companies that do that, and they do it really well. So you as an independent publisher, like you can't compete with an Asmodee.
I think, dude, that you'll see like a great game, regardless of where it falls, a great game that really pleases people that are looking, for, just interesting gameplay, or, that delivers on one of the aspects of fun that we've talked about before. Like I think those, you know, regardless of where you categorize them, are going to sell. And I think they're going to rise to the top. You know, I don't think that, I think that a lot of board games still spread by word of mouth. You know, in essence, this podcast itself is still spreading things by word of mouth, you know, talking about our experiences. And I think that, you know, especially with board games, they spread by word of mouth because people buy them and then people play them with other people. And then those people now want to buy them if they like them. I don't think that it's just like, you know, oh, this is, not everybody's shutting doors like you, Andy. Not everybody is saying like, you know, oh, what is it? A midweight Euro pass without having at least tried it. You know, they hear people say that it's a great game and then they're willing to play it because, you know, they're friends with this person. So they may as well play it, you know, and then they like it.
I'm not really so much saying that the midweight Euros themselves are going to stop selling. It's just that, like, bigger companies will know what does sell well, and that is your light to medium weight games because they're more appealing to a vaster, bigger audience. And so I think those kind of companies are going to buy up those designs and sell them. Like, it's going to be really hard for, you know, a one-man company to have just their one game that is of the variety that's quite popular. I think those people who are going to publish those games are going to shop them to the bigger companies that want to publish those games. What I'm saying is I'm not crapping on it. I'm just saying that I don't think you're going to see a lot of like small independent companies catering to that part of the board game market as much going forward, because that's what the big people are going to be doing, and you just can't compete with them.
Mm-hmm. I think that to bring it back to where Trent was saying, I really agree. Yeah, no, I agree with where you're going with it, Andy. I just would make a distinction between, you know, like, I don't think you're going to see companies that are just picking up a game so that they can have a game in their collection that is X themed, you know? Like,
yeah, no, that's not where I was going with that.
There's something that needs to be distinguishing about these games. And I do feel like until now, a lot of game companies have exploded onto the market with a successful game and then have, like, sort of built a brand to the point where people are just willing to buy a game from them because it, you know, has their mark on the box. And I honestly don't think like that's, you know, I don't think that people are necessarily going to be going that direction so much. Like, you have to carve out a niche. You can't just try to expand your scope as a company by being, you know, you explode onto the market with a game that does this, and now you want to try to widen, you know, to be more of like a lighter game company. I think that you're going to want a separate entity. I think Capstone, you know, to bring it back to Capstone, has done a good job by creating sort of this separate brand to let people know, like, this is not a Capstone game. Simply Complex is what makes the Climbers. So, you know, like, it's a separate thing. You know, we use them a lot, but Carmen, who knows an awful lot about the industry, definitely a lot more than I do, has mentioned Renegade Games, which has exploded with predominantly midweight Euros. And one of whose was Raiders of the North Sea, which, you know, after I played your Kickstarter copy of that game, Trent, I was immediately like, and you were too, well, just like, this game is incredible, dude. This has just, you know, an easy learn. It's an easy learning game, great theme, excellent components. Everything about this game is a home run. And then it got nominated for the Spiel, and now it's in Renegade's collection, and it's selling well. I mean, you're talking like, it just needs to be a great game to do better. And I think that what Trent said is what I would go by, that, you know, these B-rate titles are the ones that, you know, like, where they might have a following, but it's a cult following at most. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not talking about your you know, boutique publishers, Andy. I mean, I know what you go. Yeah, I think that's where you're going to start to see the bloat. But I don't think that means that there's less games sold. I just think that, you know, the fact, like, board games for the sake of board games aren't going to just sell. You know, it isn't like, oh, I thought that game looked cool and I'm going to buy a game that has that. Like, that never lasts long when people are in the hobby. You know, that's not your bread and butter of sales.
Right. And that's what I was saying, is like, not that it can't happen, but that it's going to be harder and less likely that you can break into the market with competing in the area that predominantly, like, you got to find your own little niche. That I think that's going to be a bigger key to the success of new companies than it is trying to compete with Asmodee in the realms where they do well, or Cool Mini or not.
Sure, dude. And I appreciate that distinction too, Andy. I wasn't meaning to confront you on that. I just, you know, like, you know, we come at it from different angles, and I do feel like we've gotten to kind of a better understanding there. So I have kind of a dark prediction here, guys. And that my dark prediction is, I think that in 2018, I think that at least one of the individuals whose opinions I respect and whose input I value, and I'm not gonna name any names or mention anything specifically, but I think at least one of them will end up becoming an employee in the industry in a place where their opinion gets compromised and I lose all respect for anything they say about games. So,
no one in particular? Like
no,
me?
not you. No, none of you guys. I mean, come on. You guys are like right here, but I think like I don't consume, you know, I consume, my board game media comes from very specific sources. Like I, you know, as far as who I trust and whose opinions and perspectives I actually trust is a very small amount, but I've already seen it happen. And I just think, you know, it's one of those things where you know, like I think that people see, I think that in 2018, a conflict of interest is going to be something that people have different perspectives on what exactly it means. And that's going to, like I said, result in loss of respect. Dark. But you know, I've seen it happen once, and I expect it to happen again.
Huh.
Well, yeah.
Maybe it'll be when I look in the mirror. Maybe it'll be me.
How can I phrase this? No, there was I agree with you on this one, because I see. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, if you look at the biggest network out there, Dice Tower. Let's say that, and you look at their video reviews. Do you know how many seal of approvals they gave out this year? I lost count in triple digits. Okay.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, so objective reviews in board gaming is becoming more and more infrequent, and a lot of that has to do with wanting to get on the good side of publishers and whatnot, or get in the industry and stuff. Who else did it? Undead Viking did it when he got hired by Tasty Minstrel Games.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree. I do see this trend going. Well, first, I filter all my stuff anyway, and I take most everything I hear with a grain of salt so I can actually get my hands on something and see what it is. I'll be honest, you three guys here, I'll play just about anything you recommend over anything I hear over the internet, just because I trust your guys. Like 4X, I would have blown off as nothing, but I would have given that a shot. Import Export was another one I think you guys were talking about that I didn't hear about. So I think we'll see people become a lot more selective, possibly. But yeah, I do see where you're going with this one, Joe, and I do see it's like the bubble bursting. I think we're gonna see it. It's kind of creep up on us, you know. It's like, oh,
yeah. When you start to like consider what you're hearing from that source, and then you consider it and compare it with information you know about, and it's a really sad thing. And honestly, like it's like I said, it's a dark thought, but it's
hard not to.
My prediction.
It's hard not to when you hear a hype on a game, and it's supposed to be like the most amazing thing ever because they got exclusive access to play it before anyone else, and they knew if they gave these person exclusive access, they would just hype the hell out of this thing till it just and you play it and you're like, what is this? What is going on? You know, and there's been a few games this year that have done that. Godfather, you know, I'm not.
Well, the other thing is too, when a lot of people, you know, I guess my blowback to people are like, well, you're not critical enough. You never give bad reviews. I'm like, that's because I'm not getting paid to do this. Yeah. I'm not going to spend my free time going, I hate this game. I have to play it 5 more times before I give it a review.
And that's what it needs. That's the direction it needs to be if you want things to be impartial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that I don't think we're going to see any sort of an organization of criticism. I don't think you're going to see board game criticism. I think is going to stay very informal, and I think it's going to be, you know, it's still going to be kind of a hype fest, a love fest, just in general, because I think that in general, you can enjoy an experience in a board game regardless of how good it is. You know, you're there. Enjoyment so much in board games is a matter of perspective. You know, like you can have a blast because you're already there with your friends. You know, there is no negative possibility. You know, in most of those experiences, even if it's like a terrible game, you know, people play games where the gameplay itself is not in any way the selling point of the game. You know, and it's in the gaming hobby. It's something that I think is going to continue to be informal, and for that reason, we're going to see more of that sort of conversion. You know, of somebody whose opinions and whatnot, you know, you maybe grew to value and feel like they were layered and they were personal and they were impartial, you know, or, you know, at least in this, you know, as objective as one could be, given the fact that everything is subjective, literally everything. But anyway, it definitely is something that I don't think we're going to see any sort of a collected, you know, sort of authority on board game criticism or reviewing. How about moving on now to Andy? Do you have any predictions left?
Let's see. I have. No, I had 2 left. 2. One serious and then one funny. So let's do the serious one first. I predict that the Board Game Geek top 10 to / top 20 games will, instead of being a list of actual top 20 games, will just be a list of the top 20 most hyped games.
Yeah, I think it can definitely be that way.
It's already well on its way.
Yeah,
that's what I said. That wasn't a hard prediction to make.
Mm-hmm. I think that you're going to see more and more second editions shooting up because, you know, people already know the game and they're like, yay, this is just better than that game I already liked. And so they don't suffer from those negative reviews from the people that struggled through a learning experience ultimately to decide that it was the game's fault and not their fault. So I think, you know, second editions will pervade as well, Andy. But I do agree with you. Like, there's a ton of hype already just, you know, I think you're going to see that the #1 game on Board Game Geek at one point will be unreleased.
Yeah, exactly. Probably a Stonemaier game. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. His games are very appealing to many people. I'll just
They are to a large group of people. Definitely more.
My last prediction, though, I got, and then I'll be done. Mm-hmm. I still will not have played Dominion.
All right, Andy. My next prediction relates to Andy, and that is that 52 times, at least 52 times this year, Andy will boast about his own ignorance.
I'm a science person. We boast about not knowing things all the time.
All right. Well, Andy, you know what? I walked outside today. Global warming can't be a thing. It is cold at my house.
Well, yeah. You and the president are of the same mind there.
All right. So are you about board games. Boom. Anybody else have anything to say about Andy's Dominion challenge life?
Well, if you don't want to play something, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but they won't drink. So, hey, you know.
99% of it is just circumstances. Like I shot past the gateway level before I played it, and so it just.
You could lead a horse to fine scotch, and the horse would not drink it.
Yeah.
Sorry, TC. Just needed to read
and to be fair, I think Joe and I did try to play it once online, and then like everything in the server died, so it never happened.
I mean, it's a curse that's following you around.
Well, exactly.
I think you've missed this, dude. What I got for Christmas from Caroline was a giant box to organize all of my Dominion. I have literally spent almost as much money on organization. I also got all these like dividers. So it was my big Christmas present from her was Dominion dividers in a Dominion box where I can carry it all in one box. Which means, Andy, that for your 2018 prediction to come true, I have stacked it against your favor significantly by making it possible for me to now carry around all of Dominion at once, meaning I can actually push Dominion. I never wanted to play Dominion when it was just like, oh, I had to bring my boxes for specific expansions, but now it's all in one spot. It's all well organized. Everything about the experience is refined. Andy, here I come.
Okay. I'm just going to buy the gold cards.
That's fine. You'll at least have played it, and then you'll stop saying that.
Then it'll be like, did we play Dominion, or was it Star Realms or Ascension? I don't even remember.
Oh gosh, man,
Okay, guys,
Yeah.
I got some personal
You did.
predictions. You
Okay.
ready? Okay, and I hope these people are still online because I'm going to be mentioning some people here. So my first prediction for people who listen and for my friends on the podcast, my first one's the Carmen. This is my prediction for Carmen for 2018. Carmen in 2018 is going to play some game. He's going to hate said game. He is going to want to burn said game to the ground. Said game will be the top selling game at Game Surplus, and you'll have to sell a ton of copies of it. So every time he sells a copy of this game, a little piece of him will die. So that is my prediction for Carmen at Game Surplus. Take your pick of a game. maybe it's Munchkin, the collectible card game. I don't know, but that's my prediction.
It
I
will
love
be
that prediction.
as if Trent is a board game store owner and has to sell copies of Hunger Game Trading Days.
It's gonna be something. It's gonna
You
be
mean,
epic.
are you telling me you actually want to buy Splendor?
Okay, prediction number 2. This is for Muir, who listens to our podcast all the time. I predict that in 2018, Board Game Geek is going to shut down. The server's going to die. They're going to lose something in their database. They're going to have to physically jack Muir in the brain to get Board Game Geek kickstarted back up, because all the knowledge he has from all the games he's played, because apparently he's played board games every single day since the dawn of time.
Yeah, 1,142, I think is what he said he's at now.
Yeah, he's
Days
going
in a row playing games, and he's like, "What games do you play today?" And he gave me a list of like 10
Yeah.
games. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, he's going to be personally responsible for saving Board Game Geek this year because they're going to lose information on our servers. We're going to have to jack him into it, and he'll be like the Matrix or something.
It'll be like that Star Trek episode where the people have become like intertwined with machines. That's going to be like Murr and Board Game Geek. He's going to be like part cyborg. That's just the database for Board Game Geek. Yeah.
Let's see here. We'll go with Andy. Here we go. Here's my prediction for 2018 with Andy. Andy, this is going to be the year you ditch 18xx games and become a war gamer. And I am going to predict what the exact sequence of events that's going to happen. You are going to discover Mark Herman, and you're going to play Mark Herman. You're going to love it. And the game is going to be Fort Sumner when it comes out later this year. That's my prediction.
This is hype. Hype train.
This is it.
Totally unreleased.
My prediction for Trent. In 2018, Trent's going to become a savant at Legend of the Five Rings. He's going to become extremely good at Legend of the Five Rings. He's going to be so good that he's going to go to the World Championship in Minnesota to participate in Legend of the Five Rings. And we're going to think he's going to be all that in a bag of chips. The first game he plays at World Championships, he's going to have an embarrassing loss to someone playing Clan Unicorn. And it's going to be so humiliating that he's going to swear off Legend of the Five Rings for the rest of his life. Because he's gone on record saying that Clan Unicorn is broken. It's one of the few clans that aren't playable or some nonsense like that. And the guy who's going to do it's going to be a guy I play with called Dan Napoleano.
Now, see, for that to be a true prediction, it could only happen if Trent found an oddball combination of cards that nobody else thought had any reason ever working together, but somehow yet is super powerful and destroys everybody.
He'll just come back and he won't be the same man coming back. He'll leave one person and come back.
Could be.
Joe, my prediction is that I'm going to hype some game in 2018, and this is going to lead straight to my hype section, that you cannot even comprehend how I got it, why I played it, or why I even think it's good. And it will fry some neurons in your head, and it's like the world will end. You'll be like, how could you even like this? Why does this game exist? This is just stupid and doesn't make any sense. I'll be like, yeah, that makes it incredible. You'll be like, no.
Yeah, I think that 2018 I'm gonna have either an ulcer or a stroke, and you're gonna be at least part to blame.
Yeah, and it'll be so bad. Even Carissa's gonna come and say, like, "Why'd you do that, TC? That was cruel and unusual." Even Liam will be like,
understanding the world, like, you broke him.
Yeah. Even Liam will be like, I like Jason Voorhees, and he's an awesome serial killer, but what you did to Joe was not cool.
The way that's going to have a better chance of happening is if those mechanisms still make sense historically.
So that was my. Oh, and then my very last prediction, and this is just me being bitter, is I predict everything Gale Force 9 predicts come out 2018 will not come out till 2019 because I got burned on Ascendancy waiting forever for those dang expansion packs. So if you like Gale Force 9 games, forget about it. They're not coming out this year in 2018.
That's crazy. Yeah. I think that when it comes to Gale Force 9 games, I'd be shocked that they don't release their things on time. I'd be like, why? Why not? Like, what's going on here?
Surely it wasn't the playtesting.
Okay.
Well, they don't have to worry about artwork. Yeah, no.
It's all from the movies.
They just use the shots from the movie. So, yeah, those were awesome, TC. I want to have to say, man, that was entertaining. That was very entertaining. So I don't have anything to make up for that. I just had a couple of ridiculous thoughts. Like I want to see bold unrealistically the Spiel des Jahres to make a actual heavy game award because everything has just been skewing from, when they made the Agricola Award, it's been getting more and more towards like, the Spiel des Jahres from 15 years ago is this year's like, Kenner Spiel, the connoisseur game, the heavy game award. So I that's bold and unrealistic, but I hope to see it. I want to make it out to WBC for the first time ever to attend that convention and to get to meet a lot of guys that I've had a great time meeting on the internet, but I'd love to meet those people and play games with them in person. Yeah, that's you, Carmen. That's you, and a lot of other folks too. Old Joe.
Carmen and Jeff. If he goes to WBC, make him play in the Time of Crisis tournament.
It'll be a literal crisis if you stuck me in that. It'd be like I get halfway through the game and start complaining about the game to the other folks at the table that are like, "Why are you in this tournament?"
And I'll be right there going, "Because I made him. Because I signed him up."
Like put a bag over my head. Yeah. So my other prediction is I'm gonna pull a black bag off my head, CTC there, and think this is gonna be the worst gaming experience of my life, and I'm probably gonna end up after all having a good time, but not because it's a good game.
Oh, it won't be because of the game.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Trent, you had, I think, one more prediction.
Oh no, I'm out. I'm done.
That was 5. Okay. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, this has been an amazing, look into the future here, and very interesting perspectives. I think we all took here. Let's zoom through the hype because I mean it's already been quite an episode. I'm looking forward to Hate by Eric Lang and Cool Mini or Not. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why this. It's almost like, this game is going to be. They're making it to be like, I think you played through like 7 games. It's sort of legacy style, sort of campaign style, but it's like based on, I think, like a comic book. It just looks like, Eric Lang, honestly, he's hit or miss when it comes down to it. But when this Kickstarter campaign comes up, I'm going to read the rule book and I'll give you more of my thoughts on what it's looking like. But I thought it was very interesting looking, some of the ideas, the way that when you do horrible things, you get points. So basically, TC's parenting strategy.
See, I thought he was violating copyright because Hate the Game was already made in an infamous traffic.
Well, Trent, you're next up here on our hype.
I want to talk about Charlemagne, Master of Europe. It's a follow-up to a game I was going to review this week, and I decided at the last minute to hold off because I think it needs another play or two. and that is Agricola Master of Britain, both of which are solo games from Hollandspiel. They take about 60 to 90 minutes each. I can't speak for Charlemagne yet, but I'll say Agricola, at the very least, is really, really interesting. Agricola Master of Britain. And this is the follow-up to it, and I'm very excited to try it.
Interesting. Oh, Agricola, but not the, this is Agricola that TC might actually play.
This is named after
Yeah, the best thing is to listen to him talk about it on interviews and how everyone kept trying to talk him out of naming it that.
So Trent, what were you gonna say?
Well, I mean, it's named after Julius Agricola, who was like the Roman, basically the Roman who conquered Britain in essence. And the game plays to that very much. It's almost like you're conquering Britain in a way. It does some really, really, really interesting things, as I'm coming to expect from when I play something from Hollandspiel. The component quality is questionable, but the game is interesting.
The component quality is endearing, as Andy
endearing.
would.
Sure,
their chit boards are like thicker than GMT, man. They got good counters.
Yeah, they actually are. They're like actually made out of like wood, like like seemingly like pieces on balsa wood or particle board or something. They actually are, and they smell kind of nice too, as I recall.
Yep.
Smell kind of like burnt, like that one game that you got, Turin Market. The hand smelled kind of like I just tried to smoke something over like wood coals.
Yup.
Next up, TC talking about a game that might kill you.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys some homework. Have any of you heard of a video game called Deadly Premonition?
I've heard of it.
Nope.
Okay, look it up. Watch the reviews.
Is this the game that is like a video? Like I'm thinking, is this the one that's kind of like where it was like a full motion video game?
Oh
FMV?
no, that's Night Stalker. No, this isn't it. This was a game that came out like in the Xbox 360 days. Came out brand new, $20. It was so bad. It was actually entertaining. It was. You just watch videos on gameplays. You will not believe this game. It was any successful by any stretch of the imagination, but it was actually so bad it was good. They actually made a board game on this that funded on Kickstarter. I just got it in. I'm holding one of the stretch goals, which is a coffee cup. So I think this game's gonna have every single mechanism that Joe wants to throw out the door. So look. I want you guys to look into the video game, because I want to be able to say FK in the coffee and all this crazy stuff. And you know what I'm talking about. The history behind the game is insane. The designer, like, after he made the game, became a Buddhist monk or something. Is the most unbelievable thing you can imagine. And they actually successfully kickstarted a board game based on this thing.
Wow.
That's my hype.
It sounds like The Room.
I'm going to attempt it, and we'll see if I come away from this thing unscathed.
Yeah. Was it as bad as Desert Bus?
Oh god, that was that Penn and Teller thing, was just driving endlessly in the desert, wasn't it?
Yeah, driving endlessly in the desert and occasionally hitting the left arrow. Like you had to legitimately drive the bus as long as it would have taken to drive the actual route that the bus is like. Yeah.
I saw someone do a like an all-nighter trying to play it to completion, and I played it for like a week straight or something. It was bad.
Yeah, no, there's a group that does it as a fundraiser every year.
That's what I said.
As long as you keep giving them money, they keep playing Desert Bus.
It could be up there. So that's your homework. Look into this. I want to see the look of horror on your faces when you find out that this thing was successful, and it actually was a very successful Kickstarter for a game.
Wow, that's hilarious. More and more, I'm just seeing how my existence sort of makes everything that TC loves, like everything that I dislike becomes automatically awesome to TC. This game has bad mechanics? Really, Joe? Where can I get it?
Yeah, really? You don't like it? Okay, sweet. Get it. Come on. Go check this out. That's what I'm here for, guys. You talk about the obscure good stuff. I talk about the obscure bad stuff.
All right. Well, Andy, you get to finish it off with a game I can remember seeing on the hype for the last episode you were going to participate in, which, as I recall, was like in early to mid-December,
something like that.
Finally, we get to hear from you about the newest this is coin.
Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna hype Pendragon, which is the newest coin game. That game looks so good. It's sitting upstairs right now. I haven't had a chance to break out the practice game or anything yet.
Mine's in shrink.
Yeah, but no, it looks like it's real interesting. Like there's, your 4 factions, one is sort of the government, but like interested in playing one of the barbarians where like your whole game is basically based on raiding and longships, like finding what side of the map that they didn't like up against defend, just going in and waylaying their outposts and running off with plunder and all kinds of stuff.
Have you seen the board? It's beautiful.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And, but yeah, no, the factions look really interesting and unique. And there's this whole mechanism of having like wealth cubes on the map that like, if you're one of the government factions, your goal is to keep them within the provinces. And then like, yeah, the Saxons' whole goal is just to raid the crap out of you and run off with those before you can catch them. I don't know. It looks really interesting. Like I was worried for a while it might be a little too much like Falling Sky with the ancient warfare component, but no, like this one is way different. It looks really cool.
Awesome, Andy. I'm glad you finally get to mention it. Trent, I think you're getting this one too, right?
Yeah, I already have it. Again, it's not in shrink for me. I've been reading the rule book, but yeah, I love the coin games.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be ranting on this one for this. This has a potential of being a game of 2018 for me, and it's the first week already of January.
Yeah, no, it looks good. I was trying to convince my wife is like a big Arthurian legend nut, and I tried to like show her a few of the cards. I'm like, see, honey, we can play this one together. No, she didn't. No, she was like, no, that is not happening. I know what you're trying to do.
Well, Andy, it's been awesome having you back on, and I'm glad we got to have such a nice, long, involved chat. Since it's becoming, it was such a treat to have you, and it was so difficult to do without you, man.
I know. I make everyone's lives better.
That's not true. Actually, you know what? It's parting. Parting makes the heart, or what is it? Parting is such sweet sorrow. No, distance makes the heart grow fonder. There you go. So, okay, Andy, I'm sick of you now. But thanks for coming back.
See, I refer to myself as I'm like a fungus. It's kind of weird and odd, but I grow on you.
Yeah, I figured.
So we're going to revisit this episode in December to see how many of our predictions were true.
Yeah, we certainly could, man. I've got my list here, so let's look forward to that. People of the future will be able to listen to this episode and immediately move on to the December revisiting. But yeah, it's going to be a ways. Let's actually enjoy 2018 while it's here, and let's hopefully have a great week of gaming. And remind everybody, I'm Joe Sallin, the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I've been joined by some wonderful individuals. Andrew Dennison joining us back for the first time. Thanks for being here.
Yep. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Also, TC Reed coming in from the Portland, where things are not so frozen that you can't go outside.
Yeah, I'm going to go outside right now and have a cup of coffee. It's going to be great.
And finally,
it's so cold here. Trent's frozen. His picture hasn't even moved the whole time.
Yeah. Well, Trent, it's been great having you on as well. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right. See you around, guys.
All right. Have a great week of gaming and catch us next week on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.